Hey guys, Joe here from the Transformers and Beer podcast, as well as STC Pod, coming at you with another video review. This time we're going to take a look at my Nintendo Game Boy collection. This includes my Game Boys, the various accessories involved with it, as well as the games for the system. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, well, the first thing we're going to take a look at is one of my Game Boys. And actually, funny enough, this was not mine. This was my wife's Game Boy, which I sort of took from her because she wasn't really using it for anything. So definitely one of the OG Game Boys. As you can see there from the model number on the back. It's a fairly clean system, just minor scratches on the screen. What you see here, this is actually the magnifying display attachment that you would slip over the front top of the Game Boy. And as you can see here, it just helps magnify what you would see on the screen, mainly due to the fact that it is such a small screen and there are some small details on there depending on what game you play. This is the 4-player game adapter. This allows 4 players to join into the same game. Next is the power source, in case you wanted to play the Game Boy at home. That's where the plug would actually plug into, and that's the one part that I'm missing for this. I do have that with my other Game Boy, just not this original one that my wife has included. There's the link cable where you can link your Game Boy up to another system. Useful for many games like, say, Pokemon. And as you can see on the inside here, the battery case is still clean, but we will give it a try because I have not turned this thing on for years. I have no idea if it's going to work still or how well it does work. We'll just try this one. Randomly, I'm just going to pick Mortal Kombat. We'll throw that in and see what happens. And this power is at the top left, so it's powering on, and very faint. There is a contrast button, or sorry, I should say knob. So we'll just play with that, and as you can see, it is coming up garbage. There is movement on there, so by all accounts the system does work. More than likely the game is just extremely dirty. So we'll take this one out and we can try it with a different one. More than likely maybe just a good cleaning, maybe on both parts of the inside of the system as well as the actual game itself. So we'll throw in some NFL football game day here. And there you can see Nintendo, though faint, does scroll down. You can see the Konami insignia. So by all accounts, this Game Boy still works. Not the best looking screen, just in general. The fact that it is green and black is, well, they could have picked better colors. But all accounts, the Game Boy still works after all these years. I do have another one that I will be showing in this video, but that's going to be in part 2, and that will be my mint in box Game Boy. So now we're going to take a look at some of the games. This is my Pokemon Blue with Blastoise on the cover. This game came out in '96, and basically players control the protagonist from an overhead perspective as they navigate through the land in a quest to master Pokemon battling. Basically, the goal is to become the champion of the league. There are over 150 available Pokemon, from what I remember correctly in this game. And actually, if you have the Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue, you can actually combine and link your Game Boys together and trade if you have extras of the same. Okay, and so that was Pokemon Blue. Next on the list is Pokemon Yellow, and this is an enhanced version of the previous two Game Boy games, Pokemon Red and Blue. It's a third-person overhead perspective as well, and there's 3 basic screens, an overworld, a side-scrolling screen, as well as a gameplay item setting screen. So again, pretty much the same as Pokemon Red or Blue if you're familiar with them. Okay, the next game on the list is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from Bandai. This game came out in 1994, and there's many versions of it, though the Game Boy version is a side-scrolling action game. There's 5 levels in it, and each level consists of 2 segments. So fairly standard side-scrolling game. Some people say that this one's actually quite difficult. I know the Super Nintendo one is. So I think it's more for hardcore fans for the Power Rangers. Next game needs no introduction, obviously. This game was actually packaged with the Game Boy itself, and it's the first game compatible with the Game Link cable, and everyone knows Tetris and how the gameplay is. Basically, it's a sequence of shapes composed of 4 blocks. They fall down, play in the playing field, and the whole objective is to manipulate them so that you can create horizontal lines in such a fashion that it allows those levels to be wiped out. Okay, next on the list is Last Action Hero, and this game is as crappy as its movie predecessor. It's basically takes the form of a side-scrolling beat-em-up, and that's all I can say about that. It is an extremely horrible game, much like the movie, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, enough of that game. Next one is NFL Football. And this one's actually not too bad for being on a Game Boy. Konami did a pretty decent job with this one. Screen's fairly clear, though my only real complaint is your players move extremely slow down the field. This is my biggest complaint with this game. Oh. Obviously, this one needs no introduction. Mortal Kombat. And again, if you're a handheld gaming collector, I think this was a good one to have. It's fairly basic for what it is compared to, obviously the other Mortal Kombats that you can play on the various systems. But for one of the original ones, it's pretty decent. I think especially for the limited colors that they were allowed to use, and if you could even call them colors, but the shading that they use with the black and the white and the green is fairly decent for this game. Okay, the next one is definitely one that you should have if you're a gaming fan. This is TMNT Fall of the Foot Clan. This one came out in 1990, and it's based on actual 87 television series. This one's fairly simple. It's a platforming style game where Leo, Mike, Raph, and Donatello battle against Krang and Shredder to save their friend April O'Neil. So fairly simplistic, but yet really enjoyable, especially with how well your actual turtle character looks. Okay, the next one is also another game that you should have in your Game Boy collection. This is Kirby's Dream Land. Came out in 1992, and this is both the first video game in the Kirby series and the debut of Kirby himself. Basically, it's an action platformer played on a 2-dimensional plane where Kirby moves left or right. He can jump, and basically his main attack is to inhale his enemies and objects into his mouth, and after he does that, he can spit them back out in an attack form. Okay, next game on the list is Yoshi, and this game is basically the whole goal is to clear the monsters on the on-screen playing field. Basically, the monsters fall in from the top of the screen to build vertical stacks, and the player must prevent a stack from growing too high so that it exits out at the top of the playing field. So basically you have to move and swap the stacks about so that the identical monsters can hit each other, and which in doing so then causes them to be eliminated from the playing field. All in all, it's a pretty fun game, especially if you're into sort of that Tetris style of gameplay. Next on the list is Balloon Kid, and this is a flying platform game. Basically, it's a sequel to, if you're familiar with Balloon Flight. Basically, the screen moves from the right to the left, and the whole object is basically just to make it to the end of the level while collecting balloons that your brother left you. Okay, next game on the list is Super Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins. Basically, this one you're again playing as Mario, and the whole goal is you're trying to reclaim your castle, which was taken from you by Wario. Unfortunately, there's a seal placed around the castle that can only be undone by collecting the 6 golden coins, which are guarded by Wario's henchmen. Again, if you're a Mario fan, you can't go wrong with this game. It's got great fun gameplay, nice clear graphics, and another enjoyable game on the Game Boy. Okay, next game is Wario Land, and this game is actually another feature game where it's the first time you've ever been able to play Wario as a playable character as well as the main character. And the whole idea of the game is it's a little different from the previous 2 Super Mario Land series games. You have to travel through several themed areas, which are split into several courses, which all end up in boss fights. So again, if you're a Mario fan, I think you'd probably enjoy this Wario game as well. Similar features. You're just playing as a bad guy. And who doesn't like to be a bad guy? Okay, this next one I do like because, hey, at the time of this record, it's baseball season, so we have Bases Loaded. If you like the original Bases Loaded games, you're probably going to like this one. It has everything from the hits, homers, diving stops. Basically everything that made the original Bases Loaded game great. Only captured for your gameplay on the Game Boy. Okay, next game is Solar Striker. This one basically, it only has a single player mode, and as a player you control the advanced space fighter named the Solar Striker. There's 6 levels of gameplay against enemies known as the Reticulon, and these enemies appear from the top of the screen, and basically they can be shot. There's power-ups that can be obtained, fire upgrades and whatnot. Basically, if you're a fan of shoot 'em ups, you probably like this game. Okay, the next game I'm going to be showing you is called F1 Race, and this actually uses the 4-player gaming attachment to the Game Boy that I showed you originally. Basically, you're racing in one of 2 Formula 1 cars around a variety of tracks. They're near set in landmark scenery. A standard sort of pole position kind of look to the game. As you can see, it's got your car in front of you, and it shows you your placement on the lap and your speed, which is a ridiculous 320 kilometers per hour. Not one of my favorite racing games, just because I was never really a fan of this sort of perspective with the racing. It just seemed like stuff came upon you a little too quickly, but all in all, considering how it is, it plays pretty well. Okay, next is a game that really shouldn't need an introduction, Star Wars. Basically, if you're a fan of the Star Wars series, this game follows the same line. It's a port of the NES game, Star Wars. This game is not easy, but apparently it is fun to play. I guess you could categorize it as NES hard. But if you love Star Wars, it's worth owning. Again, just follows the same storyline where you're eventually trying to destroy the Death Star at the very end. Okay, next is another franchise that you should be familiar with. This is a Batman, loosely based on the '89 Tim Burton film. Basically, you take control as Batman. You fight across 12 levels as you battle against the Joker and his law-breaking minions. Game has a simple appearance that doesn't exactly push the Game Boy to its limits, but the action remains fairly clear on the originals. Again, things can seem a little blurry, especially in the background and whatnot, but for what it is on the Game Boy, I think it's a fairly decent side-scrolling Batman shooter. Okay, the next game on the docket is certainly a classic, though probably more so known for its board game style. This is Mousetrap. Basically, the gameplay in this one is you're Maxie the mouse, and you start off in the basement, and your object is to climb your way all the way to the penthouse apartment, picking up bits of cheese and cookies along the way. Each level is, they're all different floors of the building, is a bit of a maze of obstacles and whatnot, where you have to fight against human feet, vacuum cleaners and whatnot. But all in all, it's a fairly decent game, though very simple in its premise. Okay, the next game is one that I would have to say is perfectly made for the Game Boy system, and it's a simple premise, and this is Dr. Mario. And the whole idea of this game is Mario throws down pills, and these pills have two sections, and similar to like a Connect 4 kind of game, where one is supposed to connect like 4 icons together. The object is to connect either horizontally or vertically 4 halves of the following Mario pills of the same color and or pattern. Okay, now here is another classic game, tennis. I know it may not sound exciting, but actually, if you look at it, it's got a kind of cute character feel to it. Mario is the court ref, and you can see how actually pretty smooth and clear and well played how the graphics are in terms of gameplay going back and forth with these volleys. Okay, next game is Super Mario Land. It's a side-scrolling platform game. This is actually the first in the Super Mario Land series. And basically, you're playing as Mario. You advance to the end of the levels by moving to the right and jumping across platforms to avoid enemies and pitfalls. But if you're a Mario fan, you'd certainly enjoy this game added to your collection. Next one coming up, this is called Dead Heat Scramble. And as you can tell by the cover of the game, it's well, you would think it was like a desert game, but actually you're traveling along in a tube, bumping off your enemies and whatnot. But the trick with this game is, or the little cheat, I guess, is you can use the side walls of your racetrack here to your benefit to avoid any sort of enemies in the middle. And as you can see, your car actually has a bit of a jump to it, so you can use that to your advantage as you traverse through the tunnel. Okay, next game I'm going to be showing you is Sports Illustrated. If you're a football fan, definitely one that you would want to have. Certainly more of like a coach style of gameplay. Gameplay is more fast-paced than one of the other football games that I showed you. That would have been NFL football. Okay, next game I'm showing you is Popeye 2. This one obviously you play as Popeye. It's a side-scrolling action game. Takes across 4 themed areas, each featuring 3 stages apiece that end in a boss fight. Basically, you run around punching your enemies, such as crabs, pirates, to defeat them, all the while searching for spinach cans to increase your strength or coins to extend your number of lives. Next one is certainly a favorite of mine. This is Super RC Pro-Am. If you're a fan of the RC Pro-Am series, especially on the NES, I think you'd like this one. It's fairly, it holds up fairly well to it in the same sense of, the visual style of the gameplay, how you're looking down on your character or on your car, how it has the additional speed up traps, the grease traps, how you can collect items for power-ups for your car. All in all, it's just a fun little racing game, much like the NES version. Okay, the next game I'm going to be showing you is Tetris Plus. Now this game has 2 modes, Classic Mode, which is like the original Tetris game, and Puzzle Mode. In Puzzle Mode, you start by choosing one of 4 different world locations, and there is actually a final area called Atlantis, but that's unlocked by successfully completing the first 4 stages. Each of the 4 locations actually has a different level set, so that is the difference. Okay, next game on the docket is Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle. This is another one of those side-scroller games. Again, this game is fairly straightforward and simple. More of a puzzle game, maze kind of style, where you have various doors to go through and various stairs and steps. Your character does not have a jump function in this game though, which is different from a lot of side scrollers. Okay, the next game we're going to be talking about is baseball. This game is certainly nothing special. Actually, a lot of people find it sort of frustrating. Basically, you actually only have 1 or 2 different teams to choose from. Pitching is very basic as well. You got very few pitches to choose from in terms of curves or fastballs or whatnot. Basically, the end point of this game is you probably have more fun playing it with another person than against the CPU, because for some reason the programming in this game seems to stack a lot of things in the CPU's favor. Next is the Smurfs. And obviously, again, another side-scroller game, though this one's got great detail in it. I like how they've got the forest in the background with the multi-layers. Basically, you're the Smurfs, and you're running around collecting items, trying to get to the end level. Okay, next game on the docket is World Cup. Don't get too excited though. It's an okay game. It's more of like I call it like a River City Ransom kind of game, except for soccer in terms of how your characters look. Not a lot of. The main issue with this game though is there's not a lot of screen display to actually see where other players are in the game. So when you're kicking, you're sort of kicking blind. Okay, next is actually a pretty cool game. This is the Game & Watch Gallery. This is a collection of games originally released on Nintendo's Game & Watch games. There's 4 games featured on this one: Manhole, Fire, Octopus, and Oil Panic. The one I'm showing you right now is called Manhole. Pedestrians are walking back and forth over a hole-filled floor, forcing the player to block the holes with a manhole cover in order to prevent the others from falling through. You can never have too many race games, and the next one is called Race Days. As you can see, it's pretty simple. Another basic top-down racing game. A lot of frustrations in this one, but again, it's another one of those ones where you race around, you collect items. You can get like nitro boosts and upgrades to upgrade the speed or engine of your car. Very simple, very short game. Okay, I remember this next game here. I had no idea what it was when I picked it up. Daedalian Opus, and this one is essentially it's a series of 36 jigsaw puzzles that must be assembled into a specific shape. The puzzles start off with rectangular shapes and simple solutions, but they quickly grow more complex with odder shapes like a rocket ship, a gun, or even like enlarged versions of the actual shapes themselves. So if you're into puzzle games, this is definitely one that you might want to try and pick up. Now this next one on the list, I really wanted to be good, but unfortunately it is not. This is Superstars 2. I am a fan of wrestling games, only if they are good, and this unfortunately is not a good game. As you can see, it's a lot of wrestling in the middle in terms of grappling each other and throwing your opponent into the ropes. What you gonna do, brother? I tell you what I'm gonna do is not play this game. Okay, and the final game on this part 1 list is Hyanko Alien. This game was actually created by the University of Tokyo's Theoretical Science Group, and basically you're a police officer who must defend the capital city from an alien invasion by digging holes in the ground and filling them back up after an alien falls inside. You score points for every alien that you trap, and the quicker the holes filled up after the alien falls in, the higher the number of points that you score. Well, that's it guys for part 1 of my Game Boy collection. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at ACDecepticon. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share my YouTube channel, My Life in Collecting. I'm just trying to grow it, and any support that you guys can throw my way, I'd greatly appreciate it. As always, also support my co-host from the Transformers and Beer podcast, M. He's got a YouTube channel called Transformers and Video Games. You can listen to me on iTunes as well. Not only on the Transformers and Beer podcast on iTunes, but you check out STC Pod on iTunes as well. Thanks again, guys, and I'll talk to you again real soon.